right, yeah, I just let's do that. So this is not hopefully, if you're looking down at the bottom here, this is not like a 3-hour tier list video like the ones that I usually make, because there hasn't really been a major patch, right? The Vikala patch had like a couple bug fixes and stuff, and like, but it was mostly like a ranked system change and stuff like that, and obviously Vikala is here now. But like, I just wanted to give this a quick update, I suppose, because, you know, Sandalphon is coming out in days. Hopefully, he'll come with a very large shakeup to the game's meta. And even though I did make a 1.5 tier list, and I felt pretty confident in it at the time, and I still agree with most of what's on there, as we've played more of the patch, as I've gotten more experience, I do have some thoughts on characters that have shifted a little bit, right? Certain characters I'm not quite as high on anymore, certain characters I'm higher on, and most of them are still the same. So again, with that in mind, this is going to be an update. Hopefully, this is not too much different. So let me just, real quick, let me rebuild this list the exact same way that I had it last time, and then see if I have any changes in my mood. There are at least a couple that I know for sure I do feel differently about, right? But so we had S+, which was basically unordered. Like, it was just like, in my opinion, like the characters that were the strongest in the game, right? And I had Belial in there. I had where's Catalina? I had Catalina in there. I had Zeta in there. I had Beatrix in there. Where are you, Beatrix? In the DLC right there. And I had Lucilius in there. At the time, I had a debatably / possibly S+ tier, which I included Grimnir, Siegfried, and 2B in this list. And then S rank, which is just like, you know, strong characters, but don't quite have the sauce to be top tier in my opinion. I had Percival. I had Soares in here. I had Uno. This little guy right here, Pringles fella. I had Cagliostro. I had Beelzebub. Where'd he go? I'm very bad at finding people, apparently. And I had Lancelot. And then in A+, so again, these are like roughly ordered, I guess. At the time I had Zeta here. These are like, but like realistically, it's more like the differences in the tiers. I did at the time, I probably still do, I'm not sure. I think that Belial's the best character in the game, right? But like, there's not a huge difference between like Belial and Lucilius or something. Like, him being here does not mean that like Belial's 2 times as good or anything like that. And then, yeah, A+ though was where there was a little bit of a separation, I recall, in the sense that like I had in my Seox to me was kind of the gatekeeper of S rank, right? If you like, you had to be better than Seox, in my opinion, to be an S, right? And what else? Artonka, thank you for the follow. But yeah, so then I had Jita in here, I had Gran in here, I had Vera in here, I had Versusia in here, I had Abel here, I had Narmaya in here, and I had Eustace and Vaseraga. This is like most of the game is in this tier, I think, which are just like solid characters. I would not be surprised if these characters like won a tournament, but they are, you know, just again not like a few steps below, again, like the gods of the game, in my opinion. Again, the game's not very imbalanced right now. And then in A rank, I had Charlotta in here, I had Zooey in here. That's kind of this, also kind of the gatekeeper in my, like, Zoe's probably the best of these characters in my head. I had Lawayne in here, which this character I can't figure out. I used to be higher on this character. Then I was lower on this character. I'm gonna have to think about him for a sec when we get to him. I had Yuel in here, and I had Anila in here, and then I had an A- tier, which was Nier, Matera, Vayne, Fairy, and Ladiva. I think I ordered it like this, roughly. Yeah. So this is the tier list. Obviously, Vikala was not here, right? Vikala was not here the last time that I made this. It was 1.5, right? So this is what I had. By and large, I still agree with this, but there are a couple of characters here, notably, who my opinion has shifted on a little bit, right? I think realistically, I think the top tier is not that, like, the guys in S rank, or S+ rather, are not that much different in my opinion, right? But as far as like who do I think is the best, I probably would say Belial. I will say, if I have to roughly order this, I will say I do think my opinion of Catalina has gone up very high. Again though, all of these characters, I'll talk about Zeta in a second. Like, all of these characters to me, if you want to put any of those 5 characters and like really just slam your nuts on the table and say, this character is top 1, you know, if you want to say Beatrix is the best character in the game, if you want to say Lucilius is the best character in the game, Zeta, Catalina, Belial, it's fine by me. I will say, 2 changes that are happening is that this was downplay, right? That was downplay, that's my bad. I mean, I wasn't downplay on purpose, but like, as I've seen more of Grimnir and Siegfried, I don't, you know, Siegfried, yes, did he get nerfed? Yes. Did the nerfs matter? Yes. But it just took it, like, you know, the general power level of Rising has gone down. right? The general power level of Rising has gone down. We don't have a pre-patch Nier. Belial is the best character in the game, is arguably roughly as strong as he was last patch. I mean, the Fireball buff is huge, but the removal of the Guard Crush is pretty huge. He's maybe a little better, but Belial was probably like the 4th or 5th best character last patch, and now he's kind of best, in my opinion. So like overall, the power level of the game has gone down, especially at the top, right? So Siegfried being worse than he still is definitely in that discussion, right? Same thing with, I mean, Grimnir, again, as I've just learned more about what he can do, I think he's just, he has the second best throw bait in the game, probably. Very high reward off getting hits in mid-screen with his seals up. The idea with Grim remains the same, that Grimnir is a setup character. He's not very good without the seals, I will maintain this. However, I think Grimnir's setup is the easiest out of any character in the game to set anything up. It's for how high reward it is for Grim to have those seals on screen. He like doesn't have to work for it at all in like 95% of matchups, right? He just puts that H tornado down, he hides behind that shit, he gets the seals up, and now you're fighting a top tier character, right? It really is not. I'm talking about to go to sleep. Want to make sure, is tomorrow Wall Brawl for not Master Rank? Yes, Jim. Tomorrow's Wall Brawl is for intermediates. Wait, no, it's not tomorrow. It's Wednesday. Tomorrow is Tuesday. Wait, today Monday? Today's Monday, right? But yes, so it's on Wednesday, Thursday. Unless you're in a different time zone, in which case, yeah, the Wednesday, 5 p.m. Eastern time one is intermediate. But yeah, so Grimnir, just as I've learned more about him, I think he is probably, yeah, he is that good, right? Is he like, oh my god, broken, why is he in the game? I don't think so, right? I don't think any of those characters are. Some of them are too good, probably all of them are a little too good, but I don't think Grimnir is like, no one should be breaking their monitor over Grimnir, but he is a very strong character at the end of the day. Again, he has a 50-50, people tell me that shit is seeable. I think you have 4 frames to react to whether he's on screen or not. I'm not quite so sure I believe it, right? In the little high-low that he has, right? Very good offense. Decently, like, not great defense, and I will say, I made a video about this just earlier today, but, like, I will say that, like, my opinion of how good a character's defense is has, like, really started to shift recently in terms of if they get a lot of reward off their hits when they get them, I factor that in much more heavily than I used to, right? Whereas before, I always used to kind of think of it as, like, how likely are you to get that hit? Like, how good are your buttons? How good is your 6XL? Stuff like that. Now, I still factor that in, but also, if a character is getting 2k damage off, like, their combo in the corner versus, like, 6k and full screen corner to corner, then that character's gonna have much better defense, all things being equal, right? That's a big reason, for example, why my Catalina stocks have gone up, right? Because I kind of have realized that she probably has the best defense in the game, and if anyone is competing with her, it's Belial, just because they both have very, very good buttons and very high reward off getting those buttons with their different use skills, right? I probably would argue Zeta's in there too, with the parry she can combo off of, and any hit leads to a 50-50 in the mid-screen. That is also one of the best BC baits in the game. But yeah, these characters get a shit ton of reward off getting hits, which is why their defense is so good, in my opinion. Kind of a similar-ish thing with Siegfried, similar-ish thing with Grimnir. Grim's mid-screen is pretty good if he's got meter, which is kind of like, in general, you'll have at least 50 a lot of the time. If you can do like H Tornado into like U Bionic Arm into stuff, like even without seals, you can get some pretty decent damage for mashing out of you on the corner. Or, sorry, mashing out on you in the corner, even if his back's to the wall, but it won't be as good as like these guys. So his defense is still like relatively weaker compared to some of the top tiers, but he's got a lot of stuff, right? Yeah, so 2B, I don't know, right? I actually can't, like, you could talk me to putting her here. You could talk me into putting her here. I actually don't know. And I think she's gonna be the only character that's still in this tier. I still can't quite get a read on this lady, man. She's obviously good. I mean, here are both very strong, right? But I just don't know exactly how I feel about her. This is kind of like the same way I was 6-7 months ago when the Versusia patch dropped and I made this tier list like a month later, right? She's obviously good. I'm just not entirely sure how good is she, I don't know. So I'm gonna keep her here. I think it's gonna be the only character that's still in possibly S+. But yeah. For S, there's been a few things that have shifted around in my head, probably. I still think Percival's quite strong. I think I'm a little bit less high on him than I used to be, right? He probably goes, like, near to the bottom of here. Uno, I feel is probably, like, Uno to me has become the gatekeeper of top tier, right? If you're not better than Uno, you're not top tier, right? I think this character, I've said it multiple times throughout the past few weeks, that this, to me, is, like, the definition of he's not top tier, but this character is right outside of here, right? He's got the best throw bait in the game, in his J214H, right? It beats both methods of throw teching, it's plus on block, leads to a combo on hit, it's a good defensive option too, right? He uses a cooldown, sure, but it's only an H skill, not a U skill, right? Like, he has the best throw bait in the game. He has, he's very tricky with his air movement because of how he can, like, punish you for trying to 2H him a lot of the times, right? His parry is pretty good defense. His 5U parry is less good defense, but it's also very high reward. So again, that factors in, right? It can be very just threatening running defense on this dude, a lot of the running offense on this dude a lot of the time, right? Uno's essentially his only weakness is that he is pretty slow. And oh yeah, also he has he's one of the best zoners in the game. This is like the most well-rounded character in the game, probably, is Uno, right? He's just except he has some real bad mediums, some very slow mediums, and pretty slow movement. So there's a lot of things that like everyone in the cast can punish damn near, besides like Vaseraga and shit. That like Uno just can't punish because his like fastest medium is 10 frames, right? For example, this guy right here, right, like this -7 H roundhouse kick from Soares is essentially just unpunishable for Uno, right? It's safe on block for Soares. Because -7 spaced out, Uno can't do anything about that, man. A lot of Zeta's Rhapsody follow-ups too are like -8, stuff like that, and spaced out. A lot of characters can punish those, not Uno. So like that to me is like that is a big deal. He's so good that he's still here, but that to me is a big enough deal that I don't really think he can be like a top tier character. But like my Uno stocks have been going up and up and up. Listen, luckily, you know, from talking to Blast and all that at the beginning of the game's lifespan, like I already knew that Uno had some sauce. Like the more I learn about this character, the more I think he's really quite good, right? Soares, the exact same idea as last time. I think this character is real good. Kag is strong. Bubs is strong. I will say, beep, boop, right? I think my opinion on Lance has probably soured a little bit. I'm not super, honestly, like I'm not super high on Lancelot anymore. I mean, he's still good. He's still a good character. But I do think for, you know, he's been like kind of worse Seox for most of the game's lifespan. And I thought because Seox got nerfed harder than Lancelot did in the 1.5 patch, right? And I think that kind of led me to be like, well, Lance was worse Seox, but not by that much, right? So like, surely not Seox got nerfed harder, Lance is better. And I'm not quite so sure I believe that. In fact, Seox did again. I'll say it every time this comes up. The 10 biggest nerfs in the Versusia patch went to Nier, right? The 11th biggest nerf went to Seox. Right? Besides Nier, the character that got nerfed the hardest was Seox. Losing 2,000 health is gigantic. But this character is still pretty fucking strong, right? I think he still probably is, in my opinion, on like the lower end here, a bit of like these just not barely not top tier characters. I've seen some people put him like here. I get it. I mean, the character's good, certainly. I do think there's an inherent inconsistency to having 14,000 health that makes him not quite that good, right? He does a little less damage, but he still does very high damage. He still gets some pretty good reward, again, even back to the wall, right? So his defense, he's got like the safest parry in the game, so his defense is quite strong outside that 14,000 health, though that's the kind of thing that matters too. If we're going to factor in defense into, risk-reward into their defense and how good it is, then like having less health multiplies your opponent's reward. So it does make situations inherently more unfavorable for you on defense, right? So Seox is better than I thought he was. I don't know, man. I mean, like, I could probably see him as high as like, yeah. I mean, he could be here. I just don't think he's as good as these characters, right? I don't think he's better than Uno either. But like, you could put him here. Oh, you could put him like here, and I wouldn't really mind. I'm gonna probably put him. I don't know. I'm a little less enamored with Percival compared to these characters. I'm gonna put him here and call it a day. Yeah, I mean Lance, he's so rare. I think he is still good. He's still, like, I'm not gonna like start like, oh, Lancelot's so ass. No, I think he's still good. I don't know that he's quite like a gatekeeper of A+. I think a lot of these A+ characters feel very similar to me at this point, right? Like it's just that before, whereas before, like Seox was like, he was notably in my head better than all these A+. He just didn't quite feel S, right? Percy's high in my eyes. He's just slightly worse Sieg. Yeah, it's just he's a little less. I thought he was going to be a lot less stock reliant than he was when the patch dropped. He is less stock reliant now, but he is still decently stock reliant. It's not hard for him to get those stocks. Keep in mind, again, Percival's good. S rank is good, but like I'm a little less happy with him than I thought I was going to be when the patch dropped. I will say, this is still this guy and this guy and this guy to me are my sort of like expectations for mistakes in the Sandalphon patch. Because they keep buffing this dude, and he's been, like, for most of the game's lifespan, he's been pretty okay. And then they buff him, and then they buff him, and then they buff him. And the buffs are always significant, and I think they're gonna do it again in the next patch, and we'll see, right? Wouldn't that be the same argument for Grimnir as he's seal reliant and gets said resource just as easily? Grim's resource is easier to set up and better than stocks for Percival, right? That's actually a great reason why Percival's not up there, right? Grim Seals are better than Percy stocks, and they're easier to get. So, you tell me. Just hopping back in, what's this list for? It's an update to the tier list that I made, right? Cat is more the better Percy than Sieg. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, people say better, say like worse Siegfried a lot, but like they are, you know, one poke into high reward character. Yeah, that's a good point. Percival and Catalina are both one poke into very high reward characters with good buttons, but Cat just does all aspects of it better than Percy, basically. She's meter reliant instead of stock reliant, which like meter is like water in Granblue, right? But yeah, this is an update to the 1.5 tier list. We're not gonna take too long. We're almost done, actually. It's just that with Sandalphon coming up, I wanted to update this real quickly with how some of my thoughts have shifted over the course of playing this patch for a long time now, right? But yeah, so Percival's not bad, but again, I think he's a little worse than I thought he was. Look out though, I'm expecting this is gonna be one of our top tiers in the next patch, right? There's no way B and Zeta are better than Grimnir. I mean, it's roughly ordered S+. I would not, like, if you want, again, any one of these 7 characters, if you wanted to tell me they were top 1, I wouldn't really argue. If you wanted to say Grimnir was the best character in the game, I wouldn't really be too mad at that. If you wanted to say Lucilius was the best character in the game, if you wanted to say Siegfried was the best character in the game, if you wanted to say Belial or Catalina or Zeta, yeah, right? No, stop that. Yeah. So, I mean, these characters are all, to me, just like the obviously strongest characters in the game. People get mad at Zeta, so like if I wanted to do that, this probably would get me less complaints, but like I think this character is very good. Entirely understandable. What about Anila? Would you have her as lower realistically? She doesn't have as much? Yeah, I mean she already is. Soares and Uno are the 2 characters that aren't S+, but yes. And this is not because, you know, Osaka Nasan did really well in like that one tournament and did very well in Cygames Cup, and it's not because Skill like won Karate Cup with Soares. These placements both happened before either of those, right? Uno was like here was different. Soares was always here. These characters, they're obviously very strong. I feel like, right? I put Vaseraga just before Uno. I disagree strongly, but I know a lot of people don't agree with me on that, and apparently I'm a Vas down player. So, but yeah, so anyway, Percival. Lance is probably roughly here. I don't know, you can put him like roughly here. I will say I've probably soured on Vera a bit. Not enough to like knock her down a tier, but like I think she is a little worse than some of these characters, right? I think he's top 10. I really don't, but I understand why people would feel that way. I'll tell you, so here's the biggest change on this list. You want to talk about a character that might be top 10, who's not right now. So I have had a bit of a realization recently, right? And by recently, I mean 45 minutes ago, because I realized I've kind of been a hypocrite about something. I have recently been judging character defense a lot more based on the risk-reward that they get when, like, how likely they are to get that hit and how rewarding that hit is, right? And there is one character, very notably, who I said was a very good character, but the balancing factor for them was that they had some of the worst defense in the game. And that's kind of been the message that I've been peddling this entire time. And I've recently realized that with my newfound belief that like the reward you get off your stray hits in the corner matter a lot for how good your defense is, I have realized their defense is actually, it's not great still, but it's not that bad. And as a result, the one glaring weakness I thought I had in their kit was more like a glaring meh. And they remain incredibly strong in all other aspects of the game. It's not obvious. If you're watching the stream today, it is obvious. But that character is Versusia. I'm not on the Versusia top 5 train. I think Vermilion is maybe still a little going a little nuts with that. But Versusia, I think, is a lot better than I thought she was. Right? If anyone's going right behind Uno, it's Versusia, not Vaseraga. She's not better than Uno. She's not top tier, I don't think. But she's a lot better than I thought she was. Right? That's on me. Like as I kind of like had a sort of refined my framework for what makes characters good in this game, and realized the thing I thought was like a glaring weakness in her is just not a glaring weakness, as it turns out. Again, like her defense on a scale of 1 to 5 is like a 5. Or sorry, no, sorry. It's like a 3, right? That's not great, but for that being her only thing that's like lower than a 4, she's pretty good, man. She's pretty good. So, I mean, yeah. She still is not, I don't think she's like over here though, right? But she jumps significantly, personally. Me watching myself going from one corner to another from one Versusia close L catching me? Yeah. Her defense is still like, she doesn't have needles reversal. She still has a very bad 6XL, a horrible 6XL for defense to hit anyway, but she gets a lot of reward off of it. She will get you corner to corner for a shit ton of damage. She is, in many ways, by the way, for to talk to Cal, she is better Vaseraga, right? Do you remember when I mentioned that, when Versusia came out, I mentioned how she felt very similar to Vas in like their game plans, essentially, and that they are very reliant on getting this like thing up But then, you know, when they get that thing up, they're very scary. It turns out that Versusia's stock is not as good as Soulforge. Point blank period. Soulforge is one of the best things in the entire game. But Versusia is much more functional without that than Vaseraga is, essentially. Is what it comes down to, I think. So yeah, I'm way higher on Versusia now than I used to be, I think. Yeah, and she can also side. Yeah, she can corner to corner. She can side swap. She can do whatever the hell she wants, right? And she has a lot of damage while she's doing it. So it's because like reward on hit is corner carry and damage, right? If we're talking about back to the wall, if you're the one on defense. So yeah, that's the big change for sure. Is that Versusia is much better than I thought she was. Besides that, I mean, Abel, he's rough. I think my reasoning is exactly the same. Abel is the best character in the game, except he dies, right? Abel is the best zoner in the game. He's got some of the best neutral in the game. He does the highest damage in the game on average compared to anyone, right? Especially when you average out mid-screen damage, everything. He doesn't have the best offense in the game. Like, it is relatively, he doesn't have like real mix the way that some of the best offense characters do, but his reward off that offense is the highest in the game. So it's still one of the best offenses in the game when he gets that hit, right? And he does still have like ways to like force you to do something with that command grab dive kick, for example. And if he gets SSBA, then he actually has the best offense in the game for real, right? But all of that is just, he has 10,000 health, man. He doesn't have 14,000 health. He has 10,000 health, right? He's gonna, because all of the good stuff that I'm talking about and all that reward comes from those EX specials and how they balance him in this patch, right? So he's just spending his health so goddamn much. He has the lowest health in the game by forever. And if we're talking about risk-reward, again, what this does essentially is multiply your opponent's reward. Most characters in the game can basically treat it like they're hitting Abel on no brave points all the time, compared to someone like Gran or Zeta or something, right? So I think consistency is very important, and I think Abel is just not ever going to be able to be consistent with the way that he's designed, even though he is really fucking good, right? Narmaya, Vera, yeah, I mean, listen, Vera maybe is I don't know. I still feel like install Vera is very good. I think it could be a little difficult to get into install sometimes, but like, you still, I don't know. You need to find a hit and get 100 meter, and like, it's not the worst thing in the world. Base Vera is not super good. Install Vera, I think, is pretty scary. It's not the easiest thing to get there, but yeah. So I think Vera, I know a lot of people are not very high on Vera. I don't think she's like horrible. Right? I mean, she's probably in the like bottom half of the cast, but I don't think she's that bad. Eustace is about the same, even after getting him to master, right? I don't really think I've changed my opinions on Eustace very much. And listen, man, Vaseraga, I just will never agree with some people on Vaseraga, right? Vaseraga is, to me, again, the problem with Vas is Vaseraga, weirdly, to me, is very similar to Abel in why I don't think he's gonna be like top 5 or 10 anytime soon, right? Vaseraga does the highest damage in the game in the corner, basically. Soulforge is the strongest unique mechanic that any character has. Is that right? When Voss has Soulforge up and he hits 2-2H, that is like 2-2H with Soulforge is just one of the best things that any fucking character can do in this video game. But, right, like, again, we talk about the risk reward on, like, if anything, this like newer way of viewing like a character has good or bad defense depending on the reward of that defense on hit. That kind of all that does really is cement for me that Vaseraga, I think, has the worst defense in the game. Yeah, sure, you tackle. Oh, so scary. You take like 4K when he hits you with it. It's not a reversal, right? It has a 5 frame startup on the armor, but like, yes, 4K, sure. But his like safe, jabbable, standing up, reactable reversal does 2K, and his what else? He's getting like 2L. He's mashing out with his 2L. Right? The odds of him getting a hit on defense are quite low, and the reward he gets off it is not very good. Now, big caveat. If Vaseraga has Soulforge when he's on defense, I take it all back. Because again, 2-2H, Soulforge 2-2H is just like straight up one of the best moves in the entire game. Take it all back. It's still, by the way, it's not a reversal, just because it does still have a 5 frame startup. But that's where it's like, it's you tackle with the same reward and none of the risk. Right? You want to talk about like when people, the weird thing is when people complain to me about Vaseraga, like, oh, what are you talking about? His defense isn't bad. They'll talk about like you tackle and shit. I'm like, that's kind of like, I think a bit of a self-report in the sense that like, no, man, if there's any reason that I'm wrong about Voss defense, it's that fucking, can I just, I like to show this every time, because it's not the full RPS out of the stance. It's not all that helps, definitely. But it's exactly, not this. It's exactly that. That right there, right? this fucking thing, right? This little stepper right here. If there's a reason that I'm wrong about Voss's defense, it's that thing. But he needs to have Soul Forge up while also being in the corner to do that, which, like, happens. It's not like it never happens, but, like, that is not a super... A lot of the times, at least when I'm fighting Vaseraga, I find that if he is on defense, he usually does not have his Soul Forge up. So I don't really think I've changed my opinion on Voss very much. He's not, by the way, like, again, this is... Like, there's not a, like, you say, for example, Jita is the best character in this tier, right? Because I don't think Lance, I think I'm a little lower on Lance than her. Say, like, Jita is the best character here. Jita is not 100 times better than Voss. This is all roughly equal, right? So, like, I'm not saying that, like, oh, like, if you want to put Vaseraga here, I wouldn't really, that's fine, right? I think in my opinion, like, him, Vera, and Eustace are, like, on the slightly lower end of this, which is why I'm putting them here. But again, it's not like, Gran is 100 times better than Voss. Far from it, right? Yeah, I mean, so, okay, Zooey and Anila, to me, actually are very similar characters. I don't know that I'm going to really switch them around very much. Both of these characters can do a lot of stuff, but they do it very poorly, right? Like, if Belial is, like, the guy who does everything and does it very well, right? Zooey and Anila are relatively, like, they're well-rounded characters, but, like, everything they do, they don't do very well, right? Zooey does very little damage. Zooey has a really strong 6XL game and Anila don't. That's fair. I mean, you could argue Anila has, like, better pokes and stuff like that, right? They're both, in my opinion, these are both rather similar characters. Let me take this chance to plug this. Zooey has the worst mid-screen in the game. Sure, yeah. I mean, maybe, yeah, sure, bar none. Even with meter and shit. I thought with the U, like her U little slash thing, she could get some decent carry, right? She does the lowest damage. What about the carry though? Because corner carry matters a lot, right? I feel like I've been carried decently, like, a good, like, 60-70% of the screen sometimes, but, like, use skills and shit. And carry? Zooey has great corner. Yeah, I thought, like, with meter, because again, a lot of it is without spending BP, even with, like, 50 meter, even with a use skill. Huh. Still though, I don't think it really changes my mind too much. Again, because my thoughts on Anila and Zooey both, again, is that they can do a lot of stuff badly, right? They just do a lot of stuff badly. They have a couple of, like, more specialized things they can do, but again, like, everything they can do, like, they're more well-rounded than, like, most of the characters underneath them, but, like, well-rounded, quote-unquote, and that they can do 10, they're not even jack of all trades. They're, like, bad at most everything, but, like, at least they can do everything, right? Compared to, like, a character like, I don't know, like Matera or something, right? UL is a weird one to me. This is now, so back when I made this list, I was like, Eustace is the character I know the least about. Turns out I was right, in my opinion. After playing Eustace getting to Master, I don't think I've changed my opinion on him as a character at all in terms of strength. UL is now the character I know the least about, for sure. If damage is all that mattered, Vayne would be insane since it gets half your health bar off of 2H. Well, no, it's not damage to all of them. It's the combination of the damage and how likely you are to get that damage, right? It's the risk and the reward. It's the likelihood and the reward, right? Also, even then, Vayne would not be that insane, because, like, that's the, the main thing that gets this insane damage off of. Talking strictly BP, let's see, I mean, the BP carry gets pretty standardized, right? But yeah, so UL is the new question mark for me of, like, the character that I don't really get that much, in the sense that, like, she seems, I don't know, maybe. I was commenting on the other Zooey has bad mid-screen because she does no damage. Well, I will say that does factor in, because, again, your mid-screen, if your reward in the mid-screen is very low, then, again, you're going to lose in the mid-screen more often, even if you win. If you and the opponent both win an equal amount of times in neutral, but they get twice as much damage as you will die, right? So the reward does matter. I'm not disagreeing with Tubby. I'm just saying that I don't really think that changes my opinion on her, just because she is still a little bit more versatile than a lot of the characters below her, in my opinion, right? But yeah, so UL, I don't know. I'm going to put UL here and kind of, like, go, like, She doesn't seem... I think Zoe's mid-screen is hella underrated. I'm not gonna, you and Tubby can talk that out. I'm not gonna have a dog in this fight. I think even if Zooey has, like, unless she's got, like, Catalina level mid-screen, I'm not sure it, like, moves her really any higher up, there, right? But yeah, so, UL I'm just gonna put here. She's got a lot of tools, but, like, again, she is relatively linear, I suppose. The thing she does linearly, she does quite well, right? But there's a lot of characters that are on the lower half of this list that do one thing linearly, but they do it quite well, right? So, like, she might be higher. I've heard some talk of, like, yo, this UL character is actually secretly broken. Maybe. People say that about every character. People have said that about literally everyone on this list. So, like, I'm very open to being wrong about UL here. I don't think she's lower than this. She might be higher than this, but I couldn't. This is still a character that like I almost never really see her that much, and I'm not entirely sure what I think about her. This is my gut instinct, and I'm gonna stick with it. Right? Now the two characters I'm the least confident in back to back. Right? Lwayne is a fucking weird ass character, man. I used to be way higher on this guy. I used to have him like here, you know, and then like as I've learned more about him, I kind of want to put him like here, and now as I've learned more about him, I kind of want to move him up a little bit, but like I think the reason that I have a hard time pinning down my opinion on Lwayne is because he is like he stomps some characters in this game harder than like almost anyone, right? Lwayne has some like Lwayne's got some really fucked up matchups, right? Like in the sense that, because the big thing is, the reason for this is that like Lwayne eating is one of the strongest things in the game, right? It's one of the it's one of the single strongest win conditions in the game. I would probably argue the only better, like assuming like, you know, not in terms of how easy it is to access, but in terms of like how it works when it's actually going. The only thing better than Lwayne just eating a bunch is Lucilius Ladiva 5, I think, right? But again, it's very matchup dependent how much he gets to do that kind of shit, right? So I think I want to keep him here roughly. He's a confusing one though, because again, I'd say if anything grounds me here, it's that the characters that Lwayne beats the shit out of are not like these guys, right? It's not Belial, it's not Catalina, it's not Beatrix or Zeta or Lucilius, right? I actually don't know if Grimnir is a weird character. He's a weird character. I'm not sure if there's some weird matchup there, but like, you know, it's not Siegfried. The characters that Lwayne tends to beat the shit out of are like characters that are like worse anyway, right? So I don't think that just because he does like when he gets going in certain matchups, he's like impossible to beat. I don't think I really care about that too much, right? All right, someone asked why Charlotta was that low. I don't know, man. I still think Zeram has got all you motherfuckers tricked. Listen. She does one BSG. Yeah. She does one again. She got, you know, some pretty, like her whole thing with like the jump arc and the mix and shit. I get it, right? But like, I just don't understand what this character does. I guess maybe I'm wrong, but like there is not that much threat from this character with, I don't know, with the guard button existing in the game. She gets a lot of plus frames, I guess. I just don't really get it. I've never really fought a Charlotta and been like, yo, what the fuck? Why can this character do this? Like even when I like run into Zeram on Q or something and he beats the shit out of me, it's usually just like, I don't know, it feels like, you know, I get outplayed. Like it feels like, you know, I got red and shit. I feel like standing up into Demon Flip and shit, then this character's broken, right? But like, I don't know, a lot of her plus frames come from specials, so like she's rather easy to BC a lot of the time, right? And like counter hit BC at that is kind of a weakness that Suarez and Uno both have too. She does pretty high damage when she gets hit in the corner for sure. Her mid screen is okay with the meter, right? I don't know, this character just does not, like, you know, does not scare me very much, I suppose. Maybe I'm skewed by the fact that I play Ladiva, and I think this is a good matchup for Ladiva. But like, a lot of Charlotta to me feels more like it's annoying, right? Like Charlotta feels like she's annoying to fight, not actually that oppressive to fight. The DP being like relatively hard to punish is annoying. You know, her jump is annoying. But like, even if she gets the jump in, right? It's hard to 2H her. She gets the jump in, you just let her do it. Then what? Right? She's gonna demon flip you? Right? Like, unless you're standing up into the command grab, like we talk about risk reward, you're gonna get command grabbed by demon flip, and you're gonna take a shit ton of damage. Cool. But like, realistically, you should very rarely get hit by that shit. And then what? You're taking the overhead for 1800 or 2Hing her for like 9,000? And even if you get the command grab off demon flip, unless it's in the corner, she's taking more damage for demon flipping than she's doing, right? Like if you 2H her ass, and it's not that hard to 2H demon flip. I mean, you could say that it looks like her jump arc. I don't know, right? Like, maybe, but it really does feel to me like she does one, again, she's kind of like UL, right? In that she does one thing pretty goddamn well, but like, right? And she's got like some pretty miserable buttons as well, right? Like, I mean, hold on, I'm open. Am I stupid? Hold on, like maybe, I mean, her far M is pretty good, right? Yeah, it's got a nice far M, right? It's got like some decent buttons, right? Her far M is quite nice. It's not that big, I guess, but it's fast at least, right? I mean, yeah, a lot of her buttons are quite slow, right? Her own anti-air is pretty shit. So I just don't, I just don't fully get it with Charlotta, I guess, right? I don't fully get, like, the idea, besides, I think that Zerom is fucking nuts, and he makes this character look broken. You know what I mean? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm not super confident. I'm not like, there are characters here that I'm like, you're not gonna change my mind on their placement on this list. Like, most of the characters in the top tier, Uno, Suarez, at this point, Versusia as well being very good. I believe in all of this very heavily, right? But, like, Charlotta, I'm not gonna, like, yo, Shiro, thanks for the raid, man. I'm not gonna, like, pound my fist on the table and say, no, Charlotta is bad. You're an idiot. But, like, I just don't see it personally. I have never seen it. I keep not seeing it. The more I fight her, in fact, the less I see it. I mean, you could, if you want to put her here or something, if you want to say she's like better than like Zooey, cool. But like, I don't know, right? She just doesn't really break in to the rest of it, in my opinion. And then, yeah, I mean, I think, so here's an interesting thing, right? Here's an interesting thing. So Nier, I think, is bad. I mean, I had this opinion when I read the patch notes, and there was a lot of pushback on it, and then it seems like most of that pushback has stopped. So Nier is not very good, I don't think. Pretty, like, usual suspects here. Again, these characters are not, like, unplayable bad, by the way. I think they just do have, like, either most of these characters have like big holes in their game plan, or it's an inconsistency problem, right? Like they take a lot of risk to do the thing that they want to do, or like, yeah, pretty much, right? Or like they're not very good. Like Vayne, for example, is not very good at like his primary like zoning thing is not that great, right? Like Fairy and Matera have some pretty good zoning, but like they do just like die. They take on a lot of risk to like run their game plan. Same thing with Ladiva, right? She takes on a lot of risk to run her game plan. Same thing with Nier. Vayne's is not necessarily like as risky. He's got a little bit more health and stuff like that, but it's just more so that like it's just a lot easier to get around his zoning than it is like Vayne or Matera or Fairy. You can say like, oh, but then he actually can fight pretty decently up close. That's true, but yeah, he's kind of like the buffs helped. The buffs helped Vayne for sure. And I'll tell you this, So, okay, I'll talk about Vayne in a second. Ladiva is an interesting one to me, because Ladiva, in my opinion, still, like, her biggest weakness has always just been that she just has to, like, her neutral, she cannot really play, like, good, honest neutral with most characters and come out unscathed, right? She has to, like, take a lot of, like, very high-risk guesses, high-reward guesses, but very high-risk guesses to, like, get in. Now, of course, when she gets in, oh boy, right? But that, to me, has always been her biggest problem. If people fight Ladiva the way they are supposed to fight Ladiva, in the sense that they don't just run at her, they force her to come to them, right? It's going to be very difficult for her to do anything. However, with that in mind, that's still true. But like, Ladiva is also, like Versusia, one of the biggest benefactors of like this idea that I've gotten now, where I'm like, well, if you have like not the best defense in terms of like you have a bad 6XL or not the best buttons or something, but you get a really, really high amount of rewards when you do guess out of the corner, right? Then your defense is actually not as bad as I thought. Like I would have, prior to this, I would have said that like, just like Vaseraga, I would have put Versusia and Ladiva in like, that bottom tier defense category. Whereas again, Ladiva is worse than Versusia just because like her reward off the hits is a little lower and a little more inconsistent depending on what hits you get. But with meter, with Eularia, she can get basically corner to corner off even a far L, right? Like her far L hits you get put in the corner if she's got 50. And without some meter, she can still do like 4K, get you 70% of the way across the screen too, right? So her defense again is probably like, 2.5, 3 out of 5. Whereas before, I would have told you it was like 1 or something. It's like, U headbutt is probably still up there for worst reversal in the game. Her 6XL is not great. She has some decent buttons, but a lot of the longer range ones are a bit slower, stuff like that. So I almost want to I want to move Ladiva up, but I'm not sure if I'm tripping. You know what I mean? Like her biggest weakness is still her biggest weakness, right? In the sense that her inherent game plan is very risky, right? And her ability to get in is very difficult, right? But with like one of her bigger weaknesses, in my opinion, mitigated heavily, with just like, again, just by like realizing like, is her defense really that bad when like she gets 6K when she hits you off of any random hit? I almost want to do like this, I think. You know what I mean? Like, she's still not great, right? You're not gonna ever see me putting Ladiva like up here for a while. But like I think she is a lot better than I was giving her credit for, right? Yeah, right. And honestly, I think you could make a similar argument-ish to Vayne. With like the buffs to the mid screen they gave him, he's still the thing is he's still just not as good as Ladiva at it. I could do something like this for Vayne though. Vayne is like almost breaking containment in my mind, right? In the sense that like he feels like if you wanted to put him a little higher, I wouldn't really be too mad about it. But I think he still is just there's a fundamental flaw in the way they designed him in that like he feels very heavily designed around shield and shield loses to dashing. Which is what everyone's doing all the time, you know what I mean? But like, he's not bad, and he can hit like a fucking hammer, right? I mean, so can Nier, so can Matera. The only character that's not hitting like a truck every now and then is Fairy. That's because she has like some mix, right? Where Ladiva, for example, also. But yeah, I mean, otherwise, Nier, Matera, Fairy, I don't think I'm like too concerned about moving them. I don't really think these are not bad characters, not horrible characters, right? But I think they're just, again, notably more full of holes and inconsistent than the people above them. Like, I would rather take... So, we're talking about Zooey and Anila being, like, characters that can do everything, but pretty poorly, right? I would take that over a character that does one thing really well and is otherwise full of holes, right? Which is what Matera is, which is what Fairy is, which is what Nier is. You know, zoning, neutral. He's kind of weird. He doesn't do one thing really well. He does a couple of things okay. So that's why he's a little weird to me, right? Similar thing with Ladiva as well. Ladiva kind of does one thing incredibly well and is otherwise pretty full of holes, right? She'll lose the 6/6 delay L. Yeah, exactly. Like I don't know if I can like reasonably remove Vayne from bottom tier when he loses to Grand Blue Fantasy Versus Rising, right? Like his biggest weakness is 6/6 L. 6/6 delay L is Vayne's biggest weakness, and like I just can't, you know what I mean? I just can't. I can't move him out. I don't think with that in mind. But maybe I'm being too reductive. Yeah, Fairy does one thing very well, right? And especially now with the side swap, it's even better, right? But yeah, I don't think there's like again, this is not ordered. I don't think Fairy is necessarily bottom one. Like all of these characters are roughly the same to me, right? I mean, I probably let me just say actually, I don't think any of these are really unordered. Rough order. Honestly, unordered. Unordered, probably. Again, if you want to say any of these characters were the best characters in the game, I wouldn't really like. I don't, you know, yeah, like maybe super rough, but like no, yeah. If you want to say any of these characters were top one, I wouldn't really be too mad at you, right? All right, so that brings us. So again, that's so already. How different is this from last time, right? If I just bring this guy over here, right? How different is this? I feel like it's a little different. It's not hugely so, right? It's a little different though. Yeah, we got Grim and Siegfried up there, right? Percy's moved down a bit. Uno Swords has moved up a bit. Seox is in there now. Lancelot's moved down a bit. Versusia's moved up a lot, right? Otherwise, A+ remained mostly the same. A remained basically the same, except Ladiva got moved up. Yeah, like it's not huge, right? It's not huge. It's not like it's a completely different thing. But yeah, there are like my opinions on some things have shifted a bit, right? Which of course brings us now to the character that was not here the last time I made this list, and you know. Lucky Cookie Vicky. I mean, I don't think it's. I will say I've seen a lot of people doing this, right? I think you're smoking a little bit of crack, right? I like, she's not a tier worse than every other character in the game. I think this is trolling a little bit, right? But like, yeah, Vikala's not very good, right? Like, you know, there are like ways. There are just ways in like ways that weaknesses she has like no other character has, right? Like again. For example, Nier is the only character in the game that like can't Raging Strike half the time, right? That's pretty fucking bad. Vikala, there are things that like only are problems for her, right? Like the RNG in your combos, she's getting that alleviated a bit in the sense that now if you get hearts or cheese, they still have like a knock-up effect on them, right? But like Vikala's have like is the only character that can like get a hit and they get bad RNG on their cannon, and so it drops their combo. Right? Healing the enemy? Sure, yeah, but it's not even the heal. It's like, if you're like having a juggle with Vikala, and you get the cannons, and the cannon says heart or cheese, even if you don't fire it, which is the thing to do, RNG just dropped your combo for you, right? I mean, like, I guess you could, like, react to it and, like, do something else. Like, you could convert in some other way. But, like, RNG made your combo worse. And again, yeah, you could, if you're not, like, super attentive, you could heal the enemy or give them meter or shit like that. And, like, what does Smoke Bomb even do? Like, her unique... too high. You can adjust for RNG to keep the combo going, but yeah. Like, so, it's a lot of investment for, like, no reward, right? You have to be really attentive playing this character to really not get very much of anything. Her unique mechanic is, unfortunately, like, not a weakness. It's a weakness most of the time, right? Star is super good, Spike Ball is super good, Bomb is super good, but, like, I mean, would Vikala just rather... I don't know, would she just rather have, like, only the middling options from her RNG? Maybe not. Maybe the high rolls are still worth it. But, like, she's just not designed as, like, a fully formed character, I think. Now, I don't think she's, like, that much worse than, like, Fairy or Nier or Matera or something, right? She probably, if you have gun to my head, worst character in the game? But, like, I don't think it's, like, you know, undisputed, obvious, you know, please help. And again, at the end of the day, right, she will be, like, zoners they're gonna keep them weak on purpose, right? Similarly with, like, you know, grapplers and stuff like that too. So, like, I'm not too surprised, but she is getting some buffs. That might help, right? Like, some buffs and the ability to see your item RNG in advance and stuff like that, right? So, like yeah, she, you know, the buffs should help, but for now, she's not very good. Yeah, knowing what your next item is going to be, heart and cheese not affecting the combos because they still pop up and stuff. Like, because right now, the problem with Vikala, and if she is the worst character in the game, it's because she's the only character in the game whose unique mechanic is a weakness. On average, right? Like, it's not good a lot of the time. And even if it is good, it's inconsistently good. This whole tier list, I've been talking about consistency, right? The reason Belial is up here, or Zeta is up here, or not Zeta, well, Zeta, sure, yeah. Like, Catalina is up here, all these characters are here, is consistency, right? The reason that, like, you know, for example, Vaseraga, in my opinion, is a little bit lower down, is, like, he's very strong, but he's a little bit inconsistent in when he can access that strength, and when he can, like, Vas will have rounds to just roll you over like no other character in the game, but he's a little bit more inconsistent. Same thing with Abel, stuff like that. So when I'm talking about consistency this whole time, a literal RNG mechanic that your character relies on? In tournaments? Because remember, in tournaments, you might have to win 9 times. 10, 11, 12, 13 times. You might have to go through 500 men. But if you lose twice, it's over. You know what I mean? So even 50-50s that kill you when they go wrong are not very good. That's why Ladiva, for example, is not very good. Because you need to be winning more often than you're losing, right? So her RNG being, like, kind of ass for her, like, half the time, it's not scream consistency, right? And the biggest issue isn't that you heal, give meter as the cheese hard do. If they do show up, you're minus 50 because they don't have hit stun yet. How are Narm and Vera in the same tier? I'm not hating, I'm just curious. Yeah, I mean, do you really? I assume that you think that Vera is lower and Narm is higher. I feel like that's probably the normal take, right? I think. Yes. Okay. I think that's pretty normal. So I guess to argue both parts of that, I feel like Narmaya is strong for sure. Again, this is not like A+ rough order, but she's not like she's not like worse than Jita or anything like that, right? But I do think that she has basically a top 3 throw bait in H flip, but and very good offense in general, right? Narm has like very, very scary offense, but outside of getting like a stray flip, her mid screen's not amazing. The flip buffs helped a lot with that, right? Flip in general is a lot worse of a tool, in my opinion, than most people say it is. TKH flip in the corner, you got me. Top 3 throw baits, top 10 move in the game overall, maybe, right? Top 10, like, genuinely, like, TKH flip, you got me. But, like, you know, H flip, like neutral H flip, M flip, U flip, I don't think are as good as a lot of people complain about them. I think it's the kind of thing that does fall off a lot as you get better and better at the game. When I got her to master, people on S and S plus are like flip victims, man. She's top 5. I'll tell you what, if flip is like as good as people often complain about it being, she's like here. But like her almost entire power budget to me feels like it's kind of put into the different flips. And the only one that's like truly absurd is the TKH flip. Besides that, a lot of her buttons are like pretty fucking bad. She basically doesn't have a meterless DP. It's possibly S plus ordered. Yeah, indeed. She basically doesn't have a meterless DP, and Kagura, again, her reward off stray hits. I mean, she can get some pretty good reward with meter, but it's nothing amazing. She's just fine. She's strong, right? In a similar vein, Vera is a little bit different in the sense that non-install Vera is quite bad, right? She non-install Vera is more so like Zooey and Anila and shit, a little bit worse, but like in the sense that non-install Vera can do a lot poorly, right? Non-install Vera can do a lot poorly. Install Vera, I think, is genuinely still like one of the better characters in the video game, right? So it's not super easy for her to access that install, but install Vera is still like pretty terrifying. Very good mid-screen, very high damage, like some nasty setups on offense with Lumniera and shit, right? So like I think Vera's a little bit more lopsided, but I think Vera's heights are better than Narm's, Vera's lows are worse than Narm's, but it about evens out. You know what I mean? I really don't. I don't think personally that like, you know, Narmaya is like here, and Vera's like here or something. That doesn't quite seem right to me. Maybe, but like they don't seem like hugely different power level characters in my opinion. Yeah, that's about it. Is there anything else that is like notably weird? I don't think so, right? I don't think so. I mean, I'll say again, like I guess I did say I'll talk about it, and I didn't. Yes, there are no Zetas in Arc World Tour Finals. No, I don't really care. It's always been my opinion that like in this game in particular, with a relatively small competitive scene and a very large roster, right? I don't really think that a character not having results is like a guaranteed they're bad. I think we can use the opposite. If a character has a preponderance of results, that's probably a sign, right? Like, you know, when like the CEO Taku was 6 Niers, that's probably a sign that something's a little off, right? But I don't think that tournament results are the be-all, end-all of character strength. I think they are circumstantial evidence at best. Also, not just because that not every character has a shit ton of like world-class representation. I also think it's because the player matters a lot, man. Like there is past like this point, essentially, like from this tier and upwards, all of these characters are good enough to win shit often, right? Like I wouldn't be surprised if we had like 3 Narms in Arc World Tour Finals, or like maybe not Abel. Abel's kind of a weird one, like just because I wouldn't, but also really would. And yeah, he's just a little like maybe Abel should be lower than this because of how explosive he is. But like, you know, if we had a couple Jitas, obviously he has a Catalina problem. But like assuming there wasn't a better character to play, right? If we had a couple Jitas there, if we had a couple Lances there, I wouldn't be too surprised, right? But like, at the end of the day, like once you hit a certain power level of character, the player is going to be factoring in much more heavily than the characters, right? I mean, even in like some of these lower tiers, man, people are still doing great shit with Fairy and Charlotta and shit like that, right? So I don't think that like, oh, Zeta has never won a major, therefore she can't be good. It's not an argument that resonates with me personally. I think at the end of the day, this is the only character with looping meterless 50/50s that doesn't really pay for them at all, right? Yeah, Materis and Arc World Tour, exactly right. Like, you know, this character has looping 50/50s and pays for it heavily. This one too. But they all pay for it very heavily. She just like doesn't, right? I'd be surprised to see multiple Unos. Well, just because no one fucking plays him, not because he's weak, in my opinion. I'd be surprised to see multiple Unos because only one Uno exists, basically. But like she has a looping meterless 50/50 that works off any fucking hit you ever get. She has a DP you can combo off of. She has some pretty good buttons. She has not the best offense in the game or anything like that. It's not like her offense is not amazing, but her Oki is very terrifying. And her offense is still very good, right? Like she has a really good throw bait in her like instant TK H Arves or U Arves, right? Her U skills still control a lot of screen, even though they don't do as much damage as they used to. I really actually don't see the argument for this character not being top tier, except, but Mr. Streamer, she's never won a tournament, right? Which I just don't really care that much. It's good circumstantial evidence. It is not the be-all end-all, right? So, like by that logic, is I don't know, man. Like I guess Sora's is top tier now because there's one of him in Arc World Tour. Has nothing to do with has nothing to do with like skill or anything like that. I don't mean like skill the word. I mean skill the guy, right? But yeah, I said I was gonna talk about this and I didn't. So let me just bring it up again. That's gonna do it, I think. That was a little, you know, I said I was gonna keep it under 30 minutes. I didn't, but I did keep it under an hour. It's probably the shortest Fearless video I'll ever make, because again, there was no big patch. It was just sort of like discussing how my opinions have changed over the course of playing through the 1.5 patch, getting a bit more experience. And yeah, we'll see. We'll see what comes with Sandalphon, man. Is Jita still better Gran in the top half of the cast? I find her way less threatening in this patch. No, Jita is not better Gran anymore. They are different in, like, at this point, they are different in ways that fundamentally matter, but I'm not, I will probably still say that I give Jita the slight edge, I guess. At this point, Gran is higher damage Jita. Jita is better neutral Gran, right? Like, Gran is higher, like, better mid-screen and better neutral Jita. Zeta is better neutral and better buttons, or sorry, higher mid-screen and better damage Zeta. And Zeta is better buttons and better neutral Gran. And like, I'll take the better neutral and poking over the higher damage on average. But I don't think there's a huge difference. I think Gran is quite good. I think Zeta is quite good. I think they both suffer now from like the Catalina problem, where Catalina is higher damage Gran and better buttons Zeta. So like, why? Unless you just think unless you really like them or something. Rhapsody isn't really a DP, loses to higher low, and throw and EX isn't generally comboable. Rhapsody is only loses to low if you're doing lighter M. The EX, you're right. The M Rhapsody is what's it called? The M Rhapsody or the L Rhapsody? The M Rhapsody is the one where he blocks low. EX isn't generally comboable. I mean, it kind of depends. Yes, until it's the best BC bait on the scariest Oki in the game, and then it kind of is. Yeah, M's low only, L is high only. Yeah. But yeah, until it's like, you know, until it's the best, it's like a BC bait that just kills me in the corner, right? H Rhapsody. Also, like, not as often, but like, yeah, EX Rhapsody is comboable occasionally, and usually when it is, it's terrifyingly so, right? Uno can do a similar thing, to be fair. It's not like it's only Zeta that can do that kind of shit. But yeah. How the fuck is Rhapsody the best BC baits? Not necessarily because it's super low risk. I mean in terms of the fact that it comes off of, like, you really, really, really want to BC Zeta Fuzzy, right? It's very scary otherwise. So it's not that Rhapsody itself is like the perfect counter to BC. It's that the situation Rhapsody finds itself BC baiting in is much more likely to work than most other situations, right? Because essentially, if you don't, like, it's, fuck you mean no risk? I did not say no risk. Okay, so Zetas are mad because they're literally taking the exact opposite thing. BC is not the only way to counter 50-50. I mean, you can block high or low, for sure. You can punish Rhapsody. Did I say no risk? Okay, so I explicitly said, I'm not saying that it's like some no risk counter to BC. And Zeta's heard that and said, oh, okay, so you mean it's no risk. I'm saying that because of the situation that it's in, you want to BC very often, right? Roll it? Is that just not the same as guessing high? We're talking about like roll it, because the JH hits you meaty. We're talking about roll the pogo, right? Is that, what's the difference between that? No need to be mad? Well, you're saying fuck you mean no risk. I'm just, like, you literally said the opposite of what I meant, and then are like, what are you talking about? I feel like I'm not the one who's mad here. But if you roll it, is that not the same thing as blocking high? Or Uno parries Rhapsody and Light Wall are the grossest BC baits? It's more likely to catch BC? Yeah, that's what I just said. I said that because of the situation that it's in, being very heavily incentivizing you to BC, right? It's a very scary BC bait. And she does get a lot of damage off of it. She gets a very high reward off that BC bait, right? But again, it's not Rhapsody, right? Again, you can, you know, Rhapsody is good, but my point is, again, the meter, like, it's the looping fuzzy that works off essentially any hits in the mid screen that makes her so good, right? If Pogo's a consistent answer, I don't think it'd be as impressive as it is. I mean, rolling is the same as guessing high, I think. Because I assume he means rolling the Pogo, because Pogo should miss. It doesn't hit below the knees, right? So rolling should be Pogo. But, like, you know, you could also, you could block high. And then once she Pogos, right, Pogo, like, once the Pogo is blocked, there is a lot more counterplay to it now than there was before, right? Like, you can always, if you know the heights, you can always either 2H or close L after a Pogo, right? You just have to know, like, how high the Pogo hit you. If she hits you high up, there's enough of a gap you can 2H her. If she hits you lower down, there's more recovery, so you can usually close L her and get a combo. So, like, once the Pogo is blocked, it's not like it's gonna loop forever or anything. But, you know, that's the rub right there, is blocking the Pogo. And I guess if you roll it, you could probably also punish it, but, you know, very similarly if you block it, right? Anyway, yeah, I think that about covers it, right? We can play some Ladiva to finish off, I suppose. So I didn't want to give a well, I say quick update. It was about an hour, but that's quick for me. Usually it takes me like three hours or something. You can walk under fake Pogo pressure. Yeah. Like, listen, Olive Branch. Once you block the Pogo's not. Yeah, they said they want to make Pogo like less oppressive in like pressure, and it's true. They did that, right? Like, once you block a Pogo, it's really a skill issue at that point if you're getting like farmed by Pogo. That's not quite what I'm referring to. It's the blocking of the thing in the first place that is so spooky, right? But yeah, that about does it, I think.